just wanna run away on vacation. I don't know what else to say now. I just need to numb the pain. Oh, I just wanna numb the pain. I just wanna run away. I don't know what else to say now. I just need to numb the pain. But that's alright.
Oh my god!
Yo guys, what is up? Maxing out Borderlands 3 video, and today we're going over Flare Bear Moze. Now this is a new Moze build. It's kind of an update and an evolution of my baby boomer Moze that I made back at level 65. This build is extremely strong and so much fun. It uses a lot of cool different mechanics, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. I hope you all enjoy the video. If you do, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And that, guys, let's get right into it. So we're going to start with an overview of the build, and then we'll get into the gear, and then get into the skill tree. Now, for the mechanics of this build, there's a few things you need to understand. The first off is that we're spec'd full purple tree because we're going to be upkeeping our Iron Cub at all times. The goal is to have Iron Cub up as much as possible. And the reason for that, the number one reason, is because we're using the Flare class mod. Now, the Flare class mod is going to give us 100% multiplicative damage increase for both us and our Cub while Cub is active. So Cub is going to be getting a huge damage increase while it is up, and we are also going to be getting a huge damage increase up to 100%, and we're going to lose that damage increase as fuel depletes. So we want full fuel as much as possible, and Cub is going to be putting out some ridiculous damage for us, which is going to help us clear very fast, and also we are going to be getting a ton of damage. And with that purple tree spec, because there's a lot of things in purple tree, a lot of them are focused in upkeeping, but there's a few things that are going to give us a lot of damage. And one of the coolest things that we can use is superior firepower. This skill reads, whenever Moze or Iron Bear inflicts a status effect on an enemy, they gain increased status effect damage. Now, this is going to work for status effects in terms of like the fire dot or a shock dot or a corrosive dot, but for cryo damage, it is just 100% damage increase at 5 stacks for cryo damage. Meaning, when we have full stacks of superior firepower and we're shooting and using cryo damage, this works for all cryo damage, so grenades or our weapons. It does not work for Cub. So if you give Cub a the General Winter, for example, that doesn't work. So Cub's not going to benefit from the cryo boost, but we are. And we're using all cryo weapons to be dealing 100% increased cryo damage with another 100% damage multiplier to all of our damage from Flare. As you can see, just right off the bat, without even getting into anything else, we've got a ton of damage on this build. Now, for the specific gear, we're rocking cryo weapons and cryo splash weapons. There's a lot of choices. Anything that comes in cryo, you can use. Now, for anointments, there's a few things, and I want to talk about something here in just a second, but some of my favorites are the Unkempt Herald, the Blood-Starved Beast, the Phaser with its shotgun attachment, a Plague Bear, the Chaosin is awesome, the Butcher is great, the Slow Hand is pretty fun. I was messing around with the Slow Hand. The Needle Gun is amazing. There's so many cool cryo weapons that you could use. Genuinely, anything you want works. For the rest of our gear, we're going to be using a Cryo Old God. Now, the Old God is mainly here for its plus 20% cryo damage. It's going to give us elemental damage resistances, and we're going to be rocking the after exiting Iron Bear. Kills increase Iron Bear's cooldown rate for 30%. For Cub, this actually works when Cub dies. Any kills that we get are going to increase our cooldown rate, and it stacks 30% cooldown per enemy killed. So this is going to give us a ton of cooldown very quickly, and it's not really worth using like an action skill and anoint because our action skill is going to be up all the time. So we're going to get a little bit better use out of this, and we're going to get that 100% multiplicative damage increase while our Cub is up. So we want it to be up at all times. Now, you can use a Revolter here. Genuinely, this build doesn't need it, but obviously for like bossing and stuff, if you activate the Revolter at the same time that you pop Cub for the big flare, full flare damage increase, that's going to be crazy damage. But for most of the time, I'm just rocking the Old Gun. Our grenade is the recurring hex, cryo recurring hex. I think I'm just moving away from the CMT. The hex is so good. It is going to give us all of the crazy health regen that the CMT is going to give, but it doesn't have a big splash radius. It's not going to kill us, and getting increased survivability and being able to use like a level 72 grenade versus like a level 13 one, for example, and be afraid of killing yourself all the time. The hex is so good. And lastly, I'm using a Snowdrift Victory Rush. Now, your options for here are honestly an Icebreaker Victory Rush or a Snowdrift Victory Rush are probably the two best options. I'm using a Snowdrift just because I like the movement on it. I like being able to distance myself from enemies when I'm using all splash weapons and get away from them. The Icebreaker would be a little bit more damage, but I think a little bit less survivability. Lastly, I want to mention something about our anoints. The Iron Cub active damage anoint I actually was wearing in all of the gameplay clips that were showing, which is impressive because this anoint breaks on swap. I did not realize until testing this a little bit later after I filmed the rest of the video, but the 150 cub damage, if you swap to any weapon at all, whether it's got a 150 cub anoint or not, if you swap and swap back to this thing, it breaks just like it used to. I don't know. I think maybe the patch broke this again because it used to be fixed, I'm pretty sure. So for the best anoints for this build, we're going to be rocking Kill Stack, which is super good, and consecutive hits. Kill Stack's going to be my favorite just because the reload speed is so nice. We are not that deep into Green Tree. Well, right now I'm not expecting to tree at all, but we're going to be reloading on this build, so having really fast reload speed plus our mobbing damage is crazy with all this cryo damage we're going to be doing. So Kill Stack's my favorite. I would avoid the Iron Cub weapon damage just because when your action skill is active for so long, if your anoint breaks and you can't fix it until your cub goes away, that's pretty bad. Lastly, if you do need to get rid of your cub, like for example, if my cub is at the bare end of its life and I'm about to fight Wotan, I'll just shoot it with a back burner real quick. Don't hate me. Just so I can reset its cooldown and have flare up at its maximum so that I can get the most damage from it. All right, let's talk about this skill tree. All right, so showing on screen is the full skill tree. Now, there are a few things that I want to mention, but it's a pretty simple skill tree. Nothing too crazy going on. Some big things that we can mention is we are getting ridiculous damage out of Harmonious Havoc. Usually I don't like this skill because I don't like having to match things and I want to use whatever, but on a full dedicated cryo build, we're going to get 10% gun damage per matching item. And as you see, I'm rocking 6 matching items right now for a full 60% gun damage from this one skill, which is pretty nutty. Big surplus. While we're going to have cub up most of the time, it's just nice to have this extra damage so that we can get those kills and guarantee those kills to get our cooldown. Otherwise, I wouldn't really need to spec this. Really big guns for cub damage. You don't need more than 1 point to never going to give you up. This fuel return is very nice and it's very strong, and more than 1 point here. This just 5% is going to give us enough of the cub returning plus running on fumes. Our cub's going to be up very often, plus this suffers from diminishing returns, so even if you're tons of points into this, you're not going to get like that much use out of it once your cub is up for a certain amount of time, which it will be just because we're spec'd into running on fumes. This engines is going to give us a lot of maximum fuel and cooldown rate so that we can just benefit from cub being up the most. Limit break at freaking, I mean, this is what, 120% cooldown? It's 80% cooldown right now. As we're spec'd into it, 80% cooldown on this. We have so much cooldown. Feature creep for more Iron Bear damage, superior firepower for that crazy cryo damage, and running on fumes so that we do not consume fuel, which is going to be happening a lot. Deadlines is really nice. I went Deadlines over Grizzled because we already have just so much cooldown, and I'd rather have my bear staying up for longer and getting that fuel return here. Stainless Steel Bear is going to give us more damage and more Skagden damage. To the last, we can throw grenades if we ever go down into fight for our life. Auto Bear, more cub time, always good stuff. Short fuse, so much damage, splash damage. We didn't spec any into Red Tree. If we had more skill points, I would have loved to go Drowning in Brass, but it was important to me to get Specialist Bear plus Scorching RPMs. Do not underestimate Iron Cub's damage. And by the way, because I haven't mentioned it yet, we're going to be using Hammer Down Protocol. This is going to give us nukes. One thing that Moze can suffer with when she's not using like a rocket launcher is really fast AoE clear with our cub spamming out nukes, which by the way, it can't hurt itself with. when cub spamming nukes, and we're also getting splash radius on these weapons. We're going to be clearing very fast, and we're also, in addition to that, rocking efficiency engine for 0.5% gun damage per second while Iron Cub is up for even more gun damage. As you can see, doing a ton of damage with this build. 1 point in Scrappy for just some nice stats. Russian Offensive for lifesteal. Scorching for more damage and fire rate, which is always nice. Daka Bear for more cub damage. It's all good stuff, guys. That is the build. I don't want to go for too long. But yeah, cryo damage Moze, tons of damage, bossing, mobbing, good survivability. It really is just all good. I'm really happy with this build. I hope you guys enjoy it because I've been having a blast with it. Probably my new favorite Moze build to run because I find it to be pretty unique and very strong. I will catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.
I was putting in the